Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. We are still grinding out some 2022 NFL Draft prospect rankings, and we are going on to our second crop of wide receivers, a position that's probably our favorite group to evaluate. There's a lot of very, very talented prospects in this class, and realistically, these next five guys we're talking about all could be day one, day two guys in other years, but this wide receiver class is so deep. Maybe that's a little bit of boots for the back end guys, but I think we're going to talk about a couple guys here who are certainly day one guys. We're joined by obviously my brother Dylan and Noah Rockoff, who you guys will be seeing plenty on the show. Grinds college football film, and we're excited to have you. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
And let's just get into our number one wide receiver here, Jahan Dotson. Rock, I'm gonna kick it off to you because this is your guy. We have a little group chat, and he says that he thinks Jahan Dotson could be a top 3 wide receiver in the class. Tell me what you've seen out of this guy on his film and why you like him so much.
Yeah, definitely Pat Cat guy for sure this year. Just reading from my notes, I have professional separator who uses elite short area quickness to beat corners at and around the line of scrimmage. Fearless in jump ball situations and has sure hands and can run a full route tree. I mean, you watch his tape and you put him in any other offense and he's putting up 1,600 yards a season.
Disgusting.
Unfortunately, with Sean Clifford throwing it to him, you're not going to get that. But what he showed in the Big Ten tops a lot of the receivers that we even have in that top portion of the wide receiver class this year.
What he did for that Penn State offense, like, there's not a lot of people who could come in and do what he did. He was the only weapon. This team really could not run the football. Besides, what is it, PJ or Parker Washington? Like, they didn't really have any other pass catchers. I mean, their offense ran through Jahan Dotson, and he was a stud. Dill, what do you see in Dotson's film that you like so much too? Because I know you like him.
I think the big thing that Rock touched on was the ability to run the complete route tree. I think he can run. I think what he does that the other guys don't do at a super high level is put routes together. Like he can run more than a slant or more than a hitch, and he can run like those more developed routes, and he runs them and he's smooth. And I mean, of course, obviously the big playability jumps out both in the contested catch world and catch and run because he can fly. I didn't give him enough credit for how fast he is and how much acceleration and pop he has.
And he has great ball skills when he's tracking balls down on those fly routes. I mean, Sean Clifford just throwing them up there. He tracks it down and makes some big-time explosive plays. I know I saw that in the Wisconsin film a lot. When it comes to Rock, you mentioned his sure hands. Like, he catches everything. And he has insane body control in the red zone when those, like, throwing windows get tight to just get a foot down. I'm sure he'll have no problem getting 2 feet down in the NFL.
Yeah,
I think he's a really well-rounded football player, and I quite frankly think about moving him up over Jake London and over Treylon Burks because of that separation, because how many different ways this dude can win, and just the straight-up athleticism that he's shown. He's a special dude. I'm very excited for this dude in the NFL.
Yeah, and right now he's my wide receiver 2B behind Garrett Wilson and Olave.
Yeah,
so he's up there. I think my favorite comparison in terms of like pro ready or a pro comparison would be Deontay Johnson. I think that's like the perfect kind of great route running ability.
But with hands,
better hands. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, this year more than last year in terms of hands for Deontay Johnson. But fluid route runner, I think that's just like a perfect like mirror image. Maybe a little bit of an edge in the hands section for Dotson.
And one other thing before we move on to our next guy who we also like a lot. Jahan Dotson, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna compare Wendell Robinson and Jahan Dotson's height because I feel like Dotson's just at least 2 inches bigger. We'll save that and move on. Let's talk about Wendell Robinson here from Kentucky. This is one of my guys that I really like. I know Rock likes him a lot too. I think Dylan might be a little lower on him than Rock and I are, but from what I see from Wendell Robinson is some elite traits to be a great slot wide receiver in the NFL. 5'11", 185 seems like a boost. I just can't imagine he's that tall. I think he was listed at Nebraska as 5'9", and so all of a sudden he just grows 2 inches when he goes to the SEC. And just this big boy football out there. But the thing that jumps out at me more than anything else, and it's not actually his like athleticism and quickness and speed, which is phenomenal. It's his toughness. I mean, the dude's not that big. He's over the middle catching balls, fighting for extra yards, and that's what you need to have in a slot receiver. Think of some of the better slot receivers we've seen in the NFL. Julian Edelman, Cole Beasley could be up there. One trait that they have, all of them, sure hands, and they're tough and they catch through contact. And that's what Wendell Robinson showed. Rock, I'll kick it off to you. What have you seen in Wendell Robinson's film that you like so much about him?
I mean, it's a copycat league in the NFL, and I think this year a lot of teams are going to look for that like Deebo Samuel kind of player. I'm not saying he has the strength that Deebo has, or maybe not even as good as a yards after catch receiver, but I mean, he can be a utility knife for any kind of offense. I have him as like a lightning quick acceleration, great footwork to burn defenses. Tyreek Hill like balance and agility. So I mean, I'm not saying he is Tyreek Hill. Nobody is Tyreek Hill, but in this draft class, he's the closest thing we got.
The thing is so much of his production came off of catching the ball behind the line, which is slightly concerning because I mean, in fairness, he wasn't playing with a rock star passing game either. But I'm a little concerned of how consistently he is going to be running routes because I don't think he's going to be able to rack the yards up with the screen game nearly as much as he does in college.
And we're seeing that be a problem with Rondell Moore at Arizona. Like, he was a guy who primarily got the ball in screens and kind of short-ish passes and was explosive at the college level, and just it hasn't quite translated to that NFL level. Wendell Robinson, though, I think you saw more flashes of him running NFL routes and getting open and catching balls over the middle. And that's what really excites me about him. But yeah, I heard the Deebo Samuel comp too on a different podcast, and I don't know if I quite agree with it just because he doesn't have to, like, Deebo can do what he does because he's built like a running back. Like, Wendell Robinson is much more like I think he can be a utility guy, and him and a kid from Texas A&M, Aeneas Smith, I think, have similar games, but I think Wendell Robinson has showed a little bit more of like that NFL ready route running and that NFL ready route tree, as opposed to like a Rondell Moore last year, or as opposed to an Aeneas Smith at Texas A&M. But he's a very interesting prospect, and he's one of those guys that you see all over. Like, some people like us are pretty high on him, but there's also people who won't even crack the top 10 as a prospect. So he's an interesting guy to keep your eye on. I'm excited to watch this dude in the NFL. He'll probably be on my fantasy team.
He's a scooter, man. Like, when you watch him on tape, like, he's the guy flying faster than everybody else in the field. It's just,
I actually don't hate like the Tyreek Hill just because of like how fast his feet move and how fast he can stop, slow down. Like, that's Tyreek Hill. He's super fast, but it's not because of those like long strides like a Julio Jones. It's because he's like just motors with his feet. His feet go like a million miles per hour. Wendell Robinson shows a lot of that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not the same long speed, but the short area agility is nasty. And not that he can't run, it's just not in the Tyreek Hill ballpark. Nobody is.
Their short area quickness is disgusting, though. So let's move on to our next prospect, who's kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum. George Pickens from Georgia, who's another really interesting prospect, and you'll find us higher on George Pickens than most people too. Dill, I know this guy is one of your guys, and you're a big George Pickens fan. What have you seen out of him that kind of puts him in our top 10 rankings here?
So I think what the hard part of evaluating Pickens is, I think if you watch this year, you're very concerned about athleticism and how is he going to separate at the pro level, because all of his production, with maybe the exception of the one deep pass in the
I was going to say,
is that the SEC title or championship game? So he caught that one ball, but like otherwise, he's looked a little slow to me. He didn't quite hit his peak of last year. But if you think back to what he was doing like when he was healthy, you're looking at probably more of a first round wideout. So I think there's a little bit of a projection going on as can he
it's for sure
return to his level, which I don't see why he couldn't. He came back like lightning quick from that ACL, but I think you did see his contested catchability, the ability to track deep balls, all those things that at his size you kind of want to see, and he did show them this year. You just need to take a leap of faith that he can get back some of the burst and juice he had as a sophomore, I guess it was.
Rock, what do you see out of him?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything Bill said there. You wonder if the injury kind of took something out of him this year. I didn't see the same burst. I mean, the speed was good last year. It wasn't amazing this year. The long speed, the ability to get open down the field, just didn't see it. But he's definitely a jump ball guy. I mean, he'll throw his body anywhere to get the ball. So you love that. But then uber physical. Like you see all those like highlights on Twitter of him chucking the Georgia Tech kid into the stands. Like you love that. You want that like at your wide receiver position. It's really fun to watch. But yeah, again, the injuries worry me. But again, I think if he can just return to what he was last year or the year before, he'll be in good shape.
Yeah, and that's kind of the camp I'm into. He's a first round pick in my book going off his first 2 years of college.
I agree with that.
Yeah, the athleticism and that, to be fair, it's not just like him returning from an ACL. It's like he tore his ACL in spring ball. Like it's incredible that he's even on the football field right now. Yeah. And kind of speaks to just that like freakish nature of him. But you're right. His game he's not a separator. He's definitely more of like, I'm going to use my body. I'm going to use my incredible body control and physicality and go up and catch over you. I'm never like, that's not like my favorite type of wide receiver. I think the best wide receivers right now, like the Devonta Adams, the Stephon Diggs, the Keenan Allens, they're elite because they can separate. That being said, there's something to be said about someone who's 6'3", 200 pounds and is a phenomenal athlete, and he'll just catch the ball over you as well. That's George Pickens.
I mean, did you see like I saw like the Dez Bryant / Jamar Chase ability to kind of like at the end of the route push off, kind of slight so the ref doesn't see it and just get a step on a corner. Even if he can't be the burner in the next level, at least he can use that as part of his like weapon arsenal to get open at late in the route. So
Rock, I'm interested in that Dez Bryant comparison. Dez Bryant, I mean, he was like before my time where I was like big into the draft. Dez Bryant wasn't necessarily a burner like Jamar Chase though, right?
No,
but
definitely
he used
not.
his body. That's kind of how he won. That's an interesting comp. I kind of like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's just the physicality, the jump ball,
Body
that's
control.
my ball mentality. You just got that all in Pickens as well. So it's kind of what I saw in him.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be a stud at the next.
Ultimately, if he returns to form, I think as a sophomore, you hit huge if you can get him in the second round.
And the value, because you're gonna get this guy. He's gonna be like I don't even know if he'll go in the second round just because of how good these wide receivers are. But he's gonna be up there. I think he has first round like potential, and you might get a guy like him early day 3 or late day 2, and that's gonna be one of the steals of the draft.
I think you guys are selling me more on Pickens now.
Yeah, we're me and Dill are like we're big George Pickens guys.
I was super high on him coming in, but I obviously didn't know if he was going to play. But God, he was so good as a sophomore.
Yeah. I just think of the slant route he ran against Michigan where he got absolutely zero separation. DJ Turner's all over him. He just catches it because I'm just like a big dog and I'm just going to catch it over you.
Yeah.
Because I'm just bigger and stronger than you and I have phenomenal hands. Let's move on to another guy, David Bell from Purdue, who put up absolutely disgusting numbers and kind of got overshadowed a little with Rondale Moore there, who's more that flashy offensive utility weapon. David Bell's a much better pure wide receiver prospect. Pre-show, we were talking about this guy a lot. I'm going to kick it off to Rock because he has, I think, some really good points on David Bell, and I'll follow up. What do you see in David Bell's game? And some people are like, how are you giving a guy who's caught for 3,000 yards in his 3 seasons down at number 9?
I mean, to answer that really quickly, I just didn't see the burst and the speed out of a bigger bodied receiver. Again, you don't really expect that out of a guy that big, but I think it was noticeable, and that's why I kind of like knocked him a little bit for it. But in terms of the positive, he definitely has a lot of them. I have that he's a big body possession receiver who's special with the ball in his hands, able to fight through contact early in routes and track ball down the field with ease. But yeah, just the speed and the quickness is what kind of got to me. You don't see anything flashy. You have a good comp from him, I think. I thought he was heavier than he is. I guess that just like plays into the fact I didn't think he was that fast. But I think in the NFL, every team needs a possession receiver and someone who can kind of just present himself well to the quarterback, catch the ball with ease, will be valuable at some point. So
David Bell is such an interesting prospect because his production's off the charts. I know, Dill. I know you love him, and the reason he falls in Rock and I's rankings to number 9, I think we both have him at number 9, is because you don't see anything that's like, wow, that's incredible. With all these guys ahead of him, there's like something about them that's special. David Bell's just solid. I comped him to like a Rashad Bateman, who's just, again, I'm just a very solid, bigger route runner who's very reliable. And something that I saw out of David Bell that I really liked, and it specifically came up in this Iowa game. Iowa plays a phenomenal cover 2 defense. And David Bell is just elite at manipulating those throwing lanes and just getting open and presenting himself to Aiden O'Connell. And that's valuable. And yeah, it's not flashy. And we might be suckers for this, where it's like we're suckers for like the flash of Wendell Robinson, where David Bell might just be the more solid receiver. And maybe that's why he's falling to number 9 on our charts. But this dude is a very good wide receiver who's shown it for 3 straight seasons in the Big Ten. And Dill, I'm gonna let you rip us apart here because I know you like him a little bit more than us.
I mean, the thing I think I see more than you guys is, yeah, he's definitely not particularly fast or sudden. Like, he's not Wendell Robinson sudden on his routes, but he is very smooth. So I don't think for a bigger guy, I think he does run really pretty clean routes, as much as it's not elite athletically, but he gets his body around when he's supposed to. And what you said, he finds his holes, he catches fairly or quite well, actually.
Oh yeah.
So I think you're just getting a really solid wideout with many less questions than maybe a Pickens or a Wendell Robinson, just because he's been really steady, consistent for the last few years. And I think because he's pretty fluid, I think he makes up for his lack of athleticism with some of that. Kind of what you see in Olave. Like, I don't know that Olave is the best athlete in the world, but God, he's wildly smooth and kind of uses that to his advantage.
Like Keenan Allen's not like a special. He's no special athlete, but he's an elite route runner and just really good at that and very good hands and reliable. And honestly, David Bell, kind of like that. And now, sadly, to move on to our last prospect of the day, a guy that just confuses the heck out of all 3 of us, Justin Ross. I'll start off with him. I'll give you kind of what I've seen out of him. His first 2 seasons at Clemson with Trevor Lawrence throwing to him was special. I mean, what he did as a true freshman in that NCAA championship game against Alabama was nuts. 6'4", 205, has phenomenal hands and phenomenal body control for his first 2 years. And then all of a sudden he has that back injury and he has to contemplate retiring from football. He gets surgery and he comes back and he just looks like a different wide receiver. I mean, like, if you only saw this year's film of Justin Ross, you cannot draft him. That's how bad it was, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, he was playing in one of the worst offenses I've ever seen.
And that's one other thing I want to know.
Life, but...
And then I'll kick it off to you guys is DJ's game, DJ Uigali, that whole offense was bad and he was bad. Like, I didn't really realize how bad he was. I thought it was more on the offensive line, and it still was to a certain extent. He has no ability to not throw 100-mile-per-hour fastballs. I mean, he has a rocket arm, and that's all he does. And so, yeah, Justin Ross had a few drops. That's because DJ's absolutely chucking it at him from whether he's 5 yards or like 10 yards down the field. He's throwing absolute heat, and it's never on your chest. It's like, he missed low a lot.
He was low.
And so when you're low on a 6'4" receiver, like, yeah, you're going to have some drops. You're chucking, spiking it at his shoe. And so, like, the offense just obviously wasn't clicking for Clemson. And Justin Ross struggled to really establish himself in, and obviously coming off a crazy injury, like some sort of back injury. Maybe it takes a little bit longer time to trust that back on the field. And now I believe he's getting another surgery done before the draft. Just a lot of question marks. Just a lot of question marks on
it. Was he draft eligible last year? Could he
Yes,
become
but
Washington?
but he had that back surgery where I don't know if anyone's going to touch him until they saw another year of him.
Right, and now it's the same kind of question.
I mean, like this guy, Rock. You can give us your take on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing for me. It's just confusing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it has answers with the injuries and the bad offense and all that, but I mean, he's a big body, 6'4", he's lean. Like Pickens, can go up and make the catch. I think he looks the most comfortable out of any receiver in the air.
Oh,
Which is
yeah.
a great quality to
His
have.
body
He looks like
control-
he's flying. He has no
his
issues
first
with it.
his first 2 seasons, the body control was
Yeah.
just absolutely disgusting. Like Trevor Lawrence and him had like an insane chemistry. He was better than T. Higgins. Like when you watch he was incredible. And then it's just like
Man.
I just wish he didn't play this year. I wish he just didn't play and just gave out his first 2 years of film, and because it's just like he looked like a shell of himself. And I don't know if
it looked like a mix of like an effort thing. It looked like a mix of, again, the bad offense, the injuries. You didn't see any of the separation that you'd like to see out of him.
No separation. That was never his game in the first place. But.
And like the giving up on routes is what really got to me. I think the wear and tear of the season and mentally like how good they're supposed to be compared to how bad they actually were, kind of just like it just like drained him. So you want to see him at the next level and see if that's the issue. But right now, I don't know if you can really look at his tape and say, hey, this is a guy I want on my team. Like it's a very odd situation.
Yeah, I mean the whole wideout room was bad in Clemson. I think Nagata didn't peak as much as you'd want. You saw flashes from him. Wilson was really struggled this year. These are all guys
they all stunk.
Yeah, he's out. So these are all guys who like you thought that was going to be an incredible wideout room, and like everybody was bad. So I don't know. It's like does make me forgive his season a little bit just because you did see how poor DJ was and how dysfunctional the offense as a whole was. But yeah, again, another guy, if you look back at his early tape, that's round one football out of him. So
yeah, and for that reason, we kind of have him. We're just not really sure where to put him yet. We're working through the next tier of wideouts, and he'll either come in after David Bell. I don't think I can put him anywhere over David Bell just because it was just so ugly this year. A couple
I have
guys.
Dontario Drummond over him. Like
I'm excited to get to his film, Rock.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have
Drummond
you back. I'm a big Dontario Drummond guy. Talk about a guy who could be like Debo Samuel.
Debo.
That's a better comp than one.
Yeah, because
sure.
he's a big body.
I'm surprised like in the mock draft you see him in like the later rounds. I just don't know like why. Like what's making you push him behind like a Justin Ross, like besides the upside of Ross.
Yeah. And maybe that's it. Anyways, that's a review on the tier 2, if you will, wide receivers. Again, this is a loaded class, and a lot of these guys are going to be good NFL guys. I don't see many guys who I'm worried about being big busts unless it's like injuries with Pickens or Ross. Just a solid, deep position group. That's a really exciting group to evaluate. Rock, appreciate you coming on. And fellas, I look forward to doing this again, and we'll talk to y'all later. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Peace.
See ya.